Hi, welcome back to my garden. Today I wanted to share with you how we make and use compost tea. So for compost tea, you basically mix a bunch of just like freshly cut greens. We mostly use nettle, but we'll also use other stuff. You fill up a bucket and then fill it with water, and then you let that ferment. So we normally end up leaving it for about a month, but we kind of do it every few weeks so that we always have like a fresh batch whenever we need it. And especially this time of year, so it's spring for us, things are growing really vigorously. You really want to give them that like nitrogen-rich food so that they kind of grow well. And because it's like fermented, I don't know, I like to think that it also has like other things in them that are beneficial. So the batch that we have here, I have to cover it because it smells really strong and the dogs take interest sometimes. The batch that we have here, we actually started in the late fall because kind of beginning of winter when you normally want to start making it, there really isn't anything growing that you can use. So I'll do a bit of a close-up. It doesn't look great. It's basically just like, so it's basically like a green stew looking thing. It smells disgusting. Oh man. So I normally mix it kind of 1 part to 10 parts. I try to use the ladle just to keep the kind of solidy green things behind. And it's definitely a gloves job because this stuff kind of stains and you'll want to like wash your clothes after too. But yeah, there's nothing worse than like smelling it on your fingers like a couple hours and like several hand washes later. So I'm gonna go, I don't know if that will show up, but it's filled to about here, and then I'll fill it up the rest of the way with water. Okay, so I'm never like super specific on the ratio, but if you're ever unsure, you can always just make it like a little lighter than you think. So we took the concentrate and watered it down, and now we have this kind of like foamy green kind of stewy situation. So I'm gonna take this over to the vegetable beds. So I'm over here by the asparagus bed. Asparagus bed sounds pretty good too. Asparagus bed, and you can see all the stalks that have come up. So this is the second year, so we decided not to harvest any. I think you can start to. A friend was telling me like once they're thicker than like your finger or something, or your pinky, you can start to harvest them. But I thought we'd just give them like 1 more year to really get that crown established, and then next year we'll start harvesting. But yeah, so they're in that stage where they're just like growing kind of vigorously, and they're growing like pretty fast too. And even like you can see the taller stalks, but even the other clumps have like their first few ones coming up as well. So I watered this bed really well yesterday, and then also it rained. So I don't have to worry about like scorching anything. If something was like a freshly planted like seedling or something, I think as long as you're watering it first, it's like fine. But yeah, you can be careful. And if you notice anything, like if you do it and it like yellows a little bit, then that's probably a sign that it was like either too soon or too much. So I'm basically just doing like a ladle full for each one. If it's like a big clump, like this one has 4 stalks, so that one can have 2. And I know that there are a few more clumps here that like haven't started sprouting yet, but that's fine. Like once they do, like they'll get the next batch of this, which will be in a couple of weeks. Okay, I don't think I missed any. Even if I did, not the end of the world. So I'll move it over to the next bed. The garlic is really going for it right now. And I think this time of year for garlic, you do want to give it like nitrogen food, because I think you want to get like the leaves as like big and lush as possible, so that then when it starts to die back at the top, it has like a lot of nutrients that it can reabsorb into the bulb. So it should give us like nice big bulbs. I also have a bunch of salad crops around here. It's still pretty, like, they're still pretty small. They're just like seedlings. So I'm not going to be harvesting them anytime soon, but that's another thing to consider. Like, once it gets closer to harvesting time, you want to time it so that you're not like harvesting them right after you've done this, because they might taste kind of disgusting. I also have a bunch of beans in this bed. So I have Alaska peas, and this one I have broad beans. So beans are nitrogen fixers. So I think when they're really young, like when they're first sprouted, they benefit from some nitrogen food, because it's only once their roots get like pretty established that they start doing their nitrogen fixing. But before then, I've read that they actually do benefit from it. So I've kind of heard mixed things of like, you don't need to feed them at all. So I think it's fine if you don't. But each of these got like one feed 2 weeks ago, and I probably won't do it now because they've all, like these ones are from, I can actually see that they're getting ready to bud out. Those are from the fall, and these ones are at least a month old now. So I think they're established enough that they can handle themselves. And then outside of the veggie beds, I would also be giving this to things like hostas and kind of like grasses, things that like food that I'm not like really as interested in, like the blooms, or like the blooms would maybe come later. So it wouldn't like interfere with that. But yeah, anything that's like in like a green vegetative stage where it's just like putting on a lot of growth, I think this is a good feed for that. What does it smell like, Cosmo? Can you leave it alone? Excuse me. Excuse me. Oh, I think I already did these ones. They can have a little more. All right, so I'm gonna finish fertilizing the rest of the beds, and then I'll show you how to make it. We have a big nettle patch, which is like ripe for harvesting, so we can make the next batch, so that once this one runs out, that one will take kind of 2 to 4 weeks, so it'll be ready. I'm down here by Son of a Ditch, where recently we've been working on creating kind of like a native, shady, moist area, I guess. So yeah, I've been planting a bunch of stuff here, and I see now that like the elderberries are starting to bloom, and they were already here. They're pretty established. But yeah, anyway, it's like looking pretty awesome. But I'm standing in front of our nettle patch. So these nettles are not native to where we are, and I haven't tried to get rid of them because I don't think I would win that war. So instead, what I want to do is just like kind of manage them. So this is kind of the main thing that we use to make compost tea. It's a great ingredient for it. I think they're like really nitrogen rich, which this time of year, most plants are just like putting on growth. So that's what they want. So what we do is like maybe 3 times during the growing season, we'll come and like cut them all back, collect them all in a bucket, and then let them ferment into the compost tea. And then that way it kind of keeps them in check a little bit. They don't look like they're blooming yet, but I feel like they're gonna start to bloom kind of this month, or maybe like in May. So anyway, it's like I feel like if I can avoid them spreading by seed and then they're just spreading from rhizome, I'm pretty sure they're in the mint family. Like they look super minty. Anyway, so basically I have my big bucket here, and I'm just going like all the way down to the base, cutting them off, and then just like making them into smaller pieces. And I'm doing this like pretty indiscriminately. I'm just gonna watch where I'm stepping so I don't step on any of the things that I just planted. But yeah, so I'm gonna get cutting and then I'll check back in. Okay, so I have my bucket pretty much, I don't know, 90% full, and it's pretty packed down too. I especially focused like kind of along the pathway and stuff to make sure that it was clear. And one thing I wanted to mention too is I remember as like kids, whenever we'd get stung by stinging nettles, we'd always like run into the kitchen, mix a little baking soda with water just to make like a slurry, and then you put that where you got stung and it neutralizes it. So just as you're working, if that happens, that can make it feel better like really quickly. And I was talking to my father-in-law recently, and he was saying that in England, I guess like dock often grows next to stinging nettle, like along waterways and stuff like that. And I guess that also neutralizes it. So if you're somewhere where you have a lot of dock near your stinging nettles, apparently you can rub the dock leaves on the nettle wound, and then that will also neutralize it. Anyway, so now that I have my bucket, I'm gonna go fill it up with water. All right, so now that one's here with the first one, and I'm basically just gonna leave it. I think it's like minimum of 2 weeks until it's ready, but you'll know that it's ready because it starts to smell like really bad. Something about like a sun-baked porta potty or something like that. Like it just smells awful. Anyway, so you'll know that it's ready. And you can use a bunch of different things for it too. Like I used nettles today. We've also used grass in the past. Generally, like anything that's like really like vigorous and like kind of growing like super green, like I think works pretty well. I like the idea of using the nettles because they're edible as well. I don't like worry about, I don't know, sometimes I wonder like if we did one with like just buttercups, which we have put some buttercups in, but because those are like poisonous, it's like, I don't know if anything transfers through the like fermentation process. Anyway, so nettles are pretty safe. We also did one with the banana peels last year to try to get more like potassium. That one didn't go super successfully because they didn't like really break down. But yeah, it kind of just got like moldy. Anyway, so that's the process for making the nettle tea. So we'll continue to give that to everything that's just like growing vigorously. Anyway, thanks for coming along, and I'll catch you next time.